system that allows you to rent out your assets and hire mission pool operators to operate them for you. And this is going to be a really big deal for Illuvium in the future, more particularly on land. And we're going to get into that very soon. JP, why don't you introduce yourselves and remind us how you got into crypto and why you started Arcade2Earn?
Yeah. Hey guys, super glad to be here. Always a pleasure to talk to you guys. So how I got into crypto, man. So my background is really I've been a trader for over a decade, but I was mostly in biotech and like fintech startups and stuff like that, equities. So back in, a little 10, 12 years ago, I was focused pretty heavily on that. That naturally kind of brought me into the whole crypto thing around 2014, 2015, because I started to see this emerging space that was really exciting, this nice technology that was fun to learn about. And so really got pretty full time in crypto around 2015. Now I was mostly just a trader, doing some teaching and stuff like that. But I've been pretty much self-employed since 2010, just either trading or doing whatever. And then how Arcade kind of came about is that we have my partners and I have all been, diehard gamers our entire lives, and we realized, this is like the classic story, right? You realize as a gamer like the importance of NFTs and how they could revolutionize the way that you have ownership and can capitalize from like this new economy. And so that's kind of what sparked our inspiration for Arcade. Is we were like, okay, like there's going to be gamers that want to game and just have fun, and there's also going to be people that want to play what we call, and I have to credit Annie for this because he was the first one that said it to me, but the meta game, right, as it were, that there's you could really define that. I don't know if lust is the right word, but this like drive, right, to like go and get the most money. Like trading in and of itself is a game.
Yes.
And my history has really inspired me to take that into, okay, how can we make the meta game something that people can participate in, and how can we gamify that and make it fun and interactive? Because some gamers don't care about the meta, right? They just want to play the game and have fun. They don't care about the economic side of it. So Arcade is really, we were inspired to come in and try to create some separation between the two things, so that if you want to play the meta game and tap more into the economic side of Web3, you can do that in a really clean cut way. If you want to just come in and be a gamer, like Scoriox alluded to earlier, like if you just want to come in and like manage a bunch of Illuvium Land and like play the game without the financial barrier, then Arcade makes that possible also. So that's kind of the short and sweet intro. And yeah, I'm just excited to have this conversation and kind of take it whatever direction we end up going. You guys are always a lot of fun to talk to.
Yo, appreciate. Yo, I wanna dig in a little bit deeper if that's cool, man. I'm super curious. So obviously that's you came from trading and you understood the value of Web3 gaming, but what was that journey actually like? I'm really curious. Like what was the thing that you saw that you were like, this is the industry that I want to go in? Like, was there a specific game? Was it watching watching a podcast, or like was there a specific thing that you were like, this is the thing that I want to be spending my time in? Because it's a pretty big change going from what you were doing to what you're doing now, I'd assume. So what was there a specific thing? Because I know Kieran said Axie. Yeah, what was that thing for you?
Yeah, so I think probably the first thing that really piqued my interest for like the potential that Web3 has for gaming was kind of my introduction. I was familiar with Axie, like I traded the SLP token and like did all that like meta stuff. I never played the actual game because it just was not the kind of thing that interests me, or like the kind of genre and like play style. We're not going to get into all that, but actually, I mean, I know people on this channel because of some past drama and stuff are familiar with Star Atlas. Star Atlas was kind of the first thing that kind of piqued my interest because I used to play a lot of like MMORPG type style games where, there is an in-game economy. It's not an on-chain in-game economy, right? But like these games like EVE Online and stuff, like there are very real economies happening there. And taking that concept and merging it with crypto was really interesting to me at first, because I was like, okay, you could literally own a gas station in Star Atlas, and that can be like your job. Like you can make money doing that. And that kind of concept was really interesting. And then kind of the second major milestone for me was actually Illuvium. I found Illuvium like very early on, like one of the first like teaser trailers that came out. And I've been, a diehard ever since, because the graphics are amazing. Just the general concept. I grew up during the Pokemon era, right? So like I'm like very entrenched in this idea of collecting these creatures and doing that. So I would say Star Atlas probably first, probably not the popular answer, but that just kind of, it opened my eyes to the economic opportunity that there is for people to come and like really live this like 9 to 5 type job inside of a game on Web3, like the kind of potential that unlocks.
Yeah, because the truth is, like, all of these ecosystems, and it was something that I know Ralph Paul used to talk about during like the bull market and everything, and I think it still stands true, is all of these ecosystems acts as in like essentially sovereign nations, where you're going to have different roles that you can play, and as long as people want to move into like a country, if people want to move into these ecosystems, you can have a fully functioning economy through that. So yeah, you could technically have a job there. How far we are to that being a fully viable option, that's another question in itself. But I do think that there is a potential for that.
I think we're farther. I think we're farther away from it than I would have probably said 2 years ago. Just after spending 2 years in the industry, I thought a lot of this was going to happen faster, and I think a lot of people did. But and not to say that the industry is not still moving fast, but I probably would have told you 2 years ago, like 5 years from now, I'm going to have a full-time job and start. I knew that it's not going to be that fast for Star Atlas, but it has been an interesting run, and the past 2 years has really taught me a lot. And actually, we'll get a little bit more into, I'm sure, arcade stuff, but we have actually pivoted our vision a little bit to kind of address the rate at which the industry is moving. So there may be a little bit of an alpha leak for people that follow arcade, but we'll get to that. I'm sure.
Yeah, cool. I definitely want to hear what you mean by that. And yeah, I agree. I think one of the quotes that really sticks with me is what you overestimate what you can achieve in 1 year, but underestimate what you can in a decade. And I think that's kind of where we're at. Like for me, I'm looking like, again, this is just my opinion, but 5 to 7 years is still like the time frame that I'm looking at. But the next thing that I wanted to ask you, man, is we saw this massively with Axie and other games like Steppin, that's what it's called. Like rentals and scholarships and things like that. What role do you think that rentals and scholarships are going to have in the future of everything that we're building? Just because I'm not sure if you also noticed or saw the Coin Gecko list of the top 15 countries most interested, and like in 2013, the top 5 are Philippines, Nigeria, Pakistan, Singapore, and Vietnam. And so 4 out of 5 of those are developing nations. And again, we saw in the previous bull run with Axie, it was a lot of those countries that were really trying to get into scholarships. So I don't know, how viable do you think that's going to be in the future? And what role do you think that's going to have?
Yeah, so I think I might have maybe a different opinion on this than a lot of people. I really am not a huge fan of the scholar model. I think that so I look at it in a couple different ways. I think it's great that the scholar model, and like you said, a lot of these are developing countries that are like most heavily interested in it. I think it's great that those people have an opportunity to kind of break through some glass ceilings, so to speak, to unlock more economic potential. But when you look at like really what's happening there, it's a lot about the global, just the macroeconomic climate in general that really creates that problem in the first place, to where someone making $5 a day is like elated to be making that much money. So, I mean, I think there's deeper rooted issues there, but I mean, anytime that someone can come in and make, a full-time wage playing games, that's great. Now, I don't think that the existing model I think Axie has proven that the existing model is very extractive because you're targeting people that need they need to take those rewards and sell it to put food on the table. They're not reinvesting that money back into the economy, right? It's a very extractive cycle that's been created. So that is kind of my biggest beef with the existing Scholar model. It's just that it needs to be tweaked so that these people are playing not just to survive, because they're taking that revenue, that earnings, and they're just dumping it in order to make ends meet. Now I think there is going to kind of be a place for it, but in terms of like the future of the industry as a whole, I think it's going to be there's going to be a low barrier to entry option for people that want exposure to certain aspects of a game, and then there's also going to be more premium assets that might have a different model that might require some scholarships, right? Because maybe there is something like a tier 4 land that your average person in some of these developing countries can't just go out and drop 100 grand on, but maybe the person that does have 100 grand to drop on it doesn't have the time to play that plot of land, right? So there's going to be some meeting in the middle there, whether that is a full-blown scholar model where Axie was like overwhelmed with the scholar model, right? I think there's probably going to be a little bit more of a balance in healthy in-game economies.
I think I think there's a lot to say about the scholarship model. I think what's important is so many people seem to forget, and especially the people in Axie, is that if someone is making money, that money has to come from somewhere, which means for the most part, someone else is losing money. Now, that's not always a bad thing, right? Because if people are playing the game and they're spending money, they don't have the intent of making that money back. If they're spending that money, I have no problem with that money then going to someone who just so happens to be making that money. Like, it's going somewhere. But as long as this isn't everyone's trying to get rich quick, that's never ever going to work, because someone's going to lose. Not everyone's going to get rich quick, and something's probably going to go wrong along the lines. And I think that distinction is really important. But I do really believe that if your game is good enough that people are spending money because they want to play the game, that's going to have a big impact on this entire economy. And just playing PB2 yesterday, my mind is still blown. I didn't think it could be. I thought Crimson Waste, it's going to be a lot more of the same. And I thought okay, I'm going to get bored of these regions quickly. You know what I mean? But it had a really different feeling. And I'm going to do that in a separate video probably, but it's a really hard one to explain. But I can genuinely see people spending money to travel in this game just because they like playing the game. I can really see that as a thing, like people not trying to take money out of the system. I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And this is still this is like a cardinal rule that I feel like Web3 is still trying to kind of figure out, is that, and this is just economics 101, right? And some early iterations just didn't get it. But if you have to have more people willing to put money in with no expectation of return than people that are there just to extract money from the system, right? And when you look at things like Axie, really pull the demographic of why are these people here, and they 99% are there because of an expectation of return. Not everyone, right? But the majority of people are there because they have an expectation to extract more than they put in. And like you said, Scoriox, games like Illuvium really are going to come in and shake it up, because now you're talking about a business model more similar to a Web 2 game, where you have your Fortnites and stuff, where someone will put in $100 into V-Bucks and they have no expectation of financial return. They're just doing it because they want to play the game. They want to have fun. We need to recreate that same kind of motivation for players willing to spend with no expectation of return. You can have people that make money, like you said, but it needs to be coming from somewhere other than thin air, right?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. We're entering some interesting times. So the next thing I'll ask you is, I've been meaning to ask you this for a while. How many games do you actually have on board for Arcade so far? I know you have quite a few, but I can't name them all. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we have quite a few. I mean, so let me just look at some of our internal stuff real quick. But I mean, we're talking easily. Probably close to 15 or 20 that we have pretty good tight relationships, maybe closer to 15. I mean, I'm looking through our list of some of our assets at the moment. you can really think of arcade like the position we're really taking on the mission pool side is that we're trying to be this diversified basket of like the best parts of GameFi so that someone with the arcade token has this like utility vehicle they can come to our platform and get diversified exposure to all the best pieces. So in doing so we need to our research team is actively going out and talking to people, Illuvium, Star Atlas, Gala Games, Heroes of Mavia, the list goes on and on. I mean we've probably talked to certainly hundreds of games so far, and like not everyone is a good fit. Some of them are very Ponzi-nomic and we pass on them very quickly, but we're out there literally every day reviewing games, and I would say probably 15 really close relationships that we have that we'll bring into the mission pool model early on.
What I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this, but I will because I want to. What are your thoughts and feelings? I know you guys, like you said, you were pretty close to Star Atlas. What are your thoughts and feelings about what's going on over there? Because I know what they had a bit of an issue with the FTX thing with losing their runway. I don't know, like how do you? And again, when I say how do you feel about them, I'm not expecting you to shit on them, but yeah, just what are your like honest thoughts about that? Because it's not, again, whatever our feelings are towards Star Atlas. Again, to be clear, I personally want them to succeed. I think it'd be great for the space if they did. I just think there are a lot of speed bumps to get to what they want to get to. But yeah, any kind of project going through something like that is going to be a tough thing to deal with. So what are your thoughts on that? I know they were a big part with, not a big part of Arcade's plan, but they were a big name in Arcade's basket of games, like you said.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Star Atlas. So our two biggest positions and our highest conviction plays are Star Atlas and Illuvium. Like those are our biggest bags that the company has. And so I want to preface just by agreeing with you that Star Atlas going down is not good for anyone. It's not good for Illuvium. It's not good for Web3. It's not good for it's just not good, right? So like when I see people on Twitter like, oh, screw you, Michael Wagner, like blah blah blah, like we're Team Kieran or whatever. Like, crazy. Listen, I have tons of respect for Kieran. I have tons of respect for Michael Wagner. Like I've talked to both of them, both great guys. So that whole heated debate drama stuff was just not something I was a big fan of. I just don't think it's healthy for the industry. But in general, Star Atlas is biting off a lot. But what they're doing is, I think, they're doing it in a way they're releasing these like modules basically like incrementally, kind of similar to how Illuvium is taking things by like launching one region here, one region there. Like we had like the first iteration of like a Star Atlas like mini game, over a year ago. We just got another release, like another module, like a month ago. So they are starting to ship stuff to bring excitement and stuff into the ecosystem. FTX hit them hard, right? I mean, I don't have all the details, and even if I did, I wouldn't be able to disclose them, but they did recover capital from that whole arrangement. They were able to get, stuff back. So they have a healthy runway. I can at least tell people that they're not going like out of business in the next like few weeks or whatever. Like I've seen rumors going around. So, I mean, I think they're capitalized. They have like a strong team. They have really strong UE5 developers. They have a passionate community. I would love to see them succeed, right? And I agree. It's the kind of thing that like I'm looking like in the next 5 years, seeing some stuff shipped with Star Atlas, and along the way we'll probably get like some new modules and stuff that are like point and click type things we can do. But it's a long play for sure. I guess I'll leave it at that. I don't really have anything bad to say. Not that you're asking me to say anything bad, but I mean, I have respect. I have respect for the team. I have nothing but love and respect for both sides. So I hope they both succeed, and I hope that both core teams can find a way to exist in harmony, because really that is just what is going to be best for the industry. If the two of them could somehow team up in some way. I'm not saying that we should have mini games of one another in their games, like however they were like throwing trash at each other. But if there's collaboration,
we're a mini game in Star
Atlas. So like no, that's all like ridiculous. But if there can be some kind of like mutual collaboration there, I think both communities are so passionate, right? Like we're talking about literally the two largest communities that I'm aware of in Web3 gaming. Like if you cross pollinate those two groups of people in a healthy way, like it would be great for both people. And
Yeah.
I'm not about to mediate that because that sounds like it would be like throwing me into a lion's den, but I hope they work it out.
Yeah. I tried to mediate at some point after the whole debate debacle, but yeah, I didn't end up following through on that. But yeah, no, the reason I asked wasn't for you to shut on them. It was just, again, genuinely knowing, like what you said, we are, like, both of us are the two biggest positions in Arcade's basket. It feels like it'd be foolish not to ask, at least. Actually,
we have high conviction in both of you guys.
Yeah, sick. And again, I've actually got a good question now. Seeing as how Star Atlas has had to pivot their strategy with everything that's happened to them, I kind of know that you mentioned you guys are pivoting slightly with your strategy as well, with some new kind of thing that you guys are going to do. Yeah, I think this is the best time to actually get that alpha out of you.
Yeah, no, I'll leak some alpha. I mean, it's not like groundbreaking, right? But it is, I think, exciting, and it's not something we've been very public about yet. But so Arcade, the initial vision for Arcade was very much centered around the mission pool model, right? Like that is what we were, point stop, like we were the mission pools. That is still a part of what we are, but I think that kind of the way to look at it now is that the mission pool model was Arcade before. It's now kind of one of a suite of products that we're working on. So we are broadening our scope to be more of a. So our initial intention, sorry, I'm going to kind of walk around this carefully just because I don't want to leak too much. I know you're going to try to get it out of me, but we're kind of repositioning ourselves in a way to be more Web 2.5 than Web 3. We're starting to build stronger relationships with Web 2 games, legacy esports teams. And we're really trying, I guess the simplest way to put it is we're trying to position ourselves more as the one-stop shop for all things gaming rather than just the one-stop shop for like people that want the meta game within Web3, right? So like that's still going to be a piece of it, but our new kind of vision and mission statement is to, and there's more competition in this realm, right? Like we've really had the mission pool model like isolated, like people weren't doing that. It was like a proprietary idea. Now we're kind of stepping a little bit more into a more competitive scene because there are other people doing some of these other things we're working on. I think competition's healthy, so this is something I'm excited to like get more into. But yeah, I mean, we're gonna be doing more with like esports, with Web 2 activations. We're going to try to have very curated ways of kind of creating that bridge between Web 2 and Web 3. And there are people that are working on that, but it just makes sense because of how closely connected we are with other builders in the industry for us to kind of be that central hub that's working on those solutions. So yeah, I alluded to that earlier just because Web3 is moving a little bit slower than we would have liked. That's just the nature of the industry. And we are still committed to pushing forward on Web3 products. But in the meantime, it's a really good opportunity for us to build Web 2 and Web 2.5 solutions that gamers, like real gamers, have been wanting for years. So yeah, I guess that's a little bit of an alpha leak.
At the start of this discussion, you mentioned EVE Online and how you grew up with EVE, and that's why you really like Star Atlas. And the first thing I thought was, well, then why not just connect the blockchain to EVE Online? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much there. Like, you could spend 7 years building a whole new space game, or you could spend 1 or 2 years building a blockchain and clicking it in to a Web 2 solution. And I know Web 2 games aren't really on board with that, but when they are, it's going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, and we have a growing network of relationships with Web 2 companies. And I think that our team is uniquely positioned to be able to go to a lot of these Web 2 companies. EVE Online is not an Easter egg. I'm not onboarding EVE Online into blockchain, but we are uniquely positioned to be able to go to a lot of these Web 2 companies and kind of hold their hand through the process of getting exposure to Web 3 and like dipping their toes in. And so that is kind of like a part of our new mission statement to like really be the central piece that is connecting a lot of these different things without sacrificing the token utility, right? So like we're really looking for ways to drive new utility, new reason for people to have the Arcade token. And there's just a lot of really exciting things that we're working on that that avenue. So just think of the mission pool model that people have been really excited about being like just one piece of the pie now. It still is there. It's still going to be at, we're still going to have support and all that exciting stuff for it. But now we just have a suite of other products that we're going to add on top of it just to drive more utility.
Yeah, cool. So I wanted to ask, so with the mission pool stuff, it's very clear how that's going to work with Web3 projects and ecosystems. And you're saying that you've said it 2 times now, a suite of other products. So I'm assuming this Web 2.5, the stuff that you're going to do with Web 2 is not going to be mission pool related, because I'm not unsure of how that's going to work. Is there like an example of another type of product or kind of a hint that you can kind of give us?
Yeah.
Where we can kind of see what direction you mean by that?
Yeah, so one kind of hint that I can give is that we're working on what we call the Esports Arcade, which is a version of our platform that will be used. So it's kind of a different implementation of the mission pool model. So it is using some of that core technology. It still is hooked into Web3. It still is something that you can earn from, but it is more so, you can think of the Esports Arcade more so like the earnings are based on the outcome of an event rather than the earnings being based on the expiration of a time, right? So like with a traditional mission pool model, you have like a 7-day mission, however much is like earned within that 7-day period is like what you get out of that pool. With the Esports Arcade, it's going to be more like win or lose type activations rather than like the expiration of a 7-day period. So what this enables us to do on the esports side is tap into Web 2 games. We can have a Call of Duty tournament. We can have a Teamfight Tactics tournament. Like we can do all kinds of really interesting stuff and kind of serve as that bridge of bringing over people into the Web3 scene and kind of introducing them slowly but surely into things that they're familiar with in a way that they're, we can make the user interface really nice.
Sick.
I want a learning queue. I'll pivot back a little bit before TSG continues on that, but just like games like Illuvium Zero and other Web3 games and things like that, because as we're talking about Web 2, do you think these things need rentals to survive? Like really high octane stuff? I guess a good way to put it is in Web 2 gaming, esports is currently not doing very well at all. It's suffering quite heavily. It's been struggling for a very long time. But on that note, do you think something like Arcade, well, not you specifically, but maybe this model, if it grows, could support the esports industry in a positive way that will make it a much larger industry?
Well, that's like kind of part of the solution that we're trying to solve for. So when we started thinking about the Esports Arcade, we were thinking of the challenges of the industry. We did a lot of market research on why is it failing? Why is it, having so much trouble? And one of the things that I realized was one thing that we are in a capable position to solve for is kind of democratizing the way that people can get exposure to esports, right? Like lowering the barrier to entry. Because like right now, if you think about how you get into esports, it's incredibly difficult. It's expensive. It's time consuming. You have to like be 1 in a million type thing. So, how can we break down some of those barriers and bring like new talent into the esports scene in a way that is sustainable? Because if the existing teams have proven anything, it's that the business model is broken, right? So as it currently sits, the business model is broken. So yeah, we are working on some solutions for that. But like in terms of, rentals and stuff like as far as Web3 goes, I actually am in the camp of, I think that, so rentals are fine for what they solve for. They solve for the ability for big money to come in and speculate on assets and rent it out to people that can't afford it to make back some kind of return, right? That's kind of like the general concept of why people want rentals. I think that's great, but it really helps the whales more than it helps Illuvium. I think Illuvium itself actually benefits. So in a perfect world, we would want only people holding land if they can play it themselves, right? So that's kind of like that is the North Star. right? And that's an unachievable goal because that's never going to be reality. But that's kind of what you want to aim for as a game. You want to have a well-diverse group of people that actually have a plot of land. They play it because they love the game, not whales that are sitting on 100 plots of land speculating on it, right? That is so. In terms of like, is it needed for Illuvium to succeed? I would say probably not, because if there wasn't a rental system, these whales would just be selling it. It would probably drop the price because they would get desperate. They would sell for cheaper because they want to liquidate, and then you finally find an equilibrium where there's people that can afford to buy it. So the rental system just kind of allows for them to hold these big bags, and that's fine too. I mean, like, it has its own pros and cons, but I think in general, for the survivability of the game, I actually prefer to incentivize players to be more hands-on involved. Now, the mission pool model that we've created really enables a little that kind of mismatch to be a little bit closer, because we're able to work with the whales to make their time easier, and we're also able to service players that want to come in, and we kind of like match make those two things. But yeah, sorry, I think I answered the question, but
yeah,
it's also
perfect.
late and I'm rambling, so cut me off at any point.
Oh man, we love the rambles. Don't worry about it. Yo, I'm curious though. Both of you guys mentioned something about like esports, like struggling. What do you guys mean? Because I'm looking at the numbers and it looks like every year they're making more and more revenue globally, and the viewership is growing every year as well. Like, what do you guys mean?
All the esports companies keep going bankrupt.
Right. Okay.
The business model doesn't really work, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. You'll know better than me, JP, but it's my understanding that basically you're paying a team of players 10, 20K, like 100K salaries to be on this esports team, and all they do is play video games, which is one thing, but it doesn't work the same way professional sports does. Because professional sports has that much more advertising and things like that they can pay all the players all these salaries and things like that. But you've also got memberships and all the rest of it, which esports doesn't really have. So, for example, in AFL, you're funding pretty much the Essendon football team by selling out all your tickets, and then the Essendon football team gets some money from that. Esports doesn't work quite the same, and you've got all these salaries for players and things like that. And what you're finding is a lot of these esports teams, not the overall organization, but the esports teams, are going bankrupt and just going out of business and things like that. And the overall prize pools for these games isn't very high. It's high in Dota, and I suspect Dota's doing quite well, but it's not very high in most of the other esports games. So how I kind of view this connection is, if you can get the people watching to actually spend money on esports outside of just watching ads, you can start to really uplift the individual teams as well, because the teams are the ones going bankrupt, not the industry.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah,
sorry, JP.
I think no. I was just going to say, I mean, I think you said it well. Smaller esports teams are particularly kind of struggling because a lot of the revenue, something like 70 or 80% of the revenue, comes from basically sponsorships and advertising, right? So like, the industry itself is, and then you boil that down more into like SJ said in the comments, like a lot of the players are making more money streaming, right?
Yeah.
That then, and they oftentimes have contractual obligations to their org to where they have to give like a portion of their money back, and like there's a very unsustainable and unpredictable revenue streams. And then, like Skoriok said, you have these outlandish, or I guess outlandish, but really in the grand scheme of things, is $100,000 for a salary for a professional player outlandish? I mean, probably not, but when you have dozens of players and you think about how only a fraction of the revenue coming into the org is actually coming from like pure revenue streams like tickets and stuff like that, merchandise, it just becomes very imbalanced very quickly. And yeah, so I mean, I think ScoreX covered it pretty well, but there's ways that I think that we're able to I think there's ways that we can kind of solve for some of these problems. And I think it boils back a little bit to making it easier. The path to being a professional gamer and being able to take your talent and monetize off of it should be easier. It should be simpler, right? You shouldn't have to be a full-time $100,000 place living in the FaZe house, getting whatever to be a professional gamer. Like there's a lot of professional or like really talented gamers out there that could make money if they just had the opportunity and the exposure. So that's kind of what we're trying to do.
That makes sense. And Scarx, fun fact, Twitch's viewership has actually gone down and YouTube has gone up. So fun fact in the recent marketing reports.
But when Twitch first came into it, it very much came in at the height of esports and things like that. And that's the reason. Yeah. Twitch first came in when gaming on Twitch was really popular. And that was one of the large reasons Twitch grew so quickly and became as big as it did. But it kind of hit maximum velocity, and the Twitch overall business practices, or the way they fleece their creators and stuff like that, was pretty unsustainable. And their discovery. The overall Twitch platform was pretty bad, but Twitch's growth is proof that esports has a place in this world, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be an explosive industry. I mean, it by no means is going under. I think the existing model is just proven to be a little bit broken, or at least wonky. But sorry, I lost my train of thought. But yeah,
that's right. Now I agree with Eshud. That Twitch is losing viewership. I think the business practices just for content creators, and I think this is something that a lot of platforms and organizations, when they discuss things with influencers, they're not influencers, or they don't understand what goes into content, and it's just a really bad and toxic relationship. So now I'm really looking forward to how YouTube is going to grow, and probably we're going to see some other things come up as well. But obviously, YouTube being a part of Google is probably going to be in the best position. We'll figure out what's going on with the censorship stuff. Hopefully, they
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I'm actually in touch with some Web3, and there's obviously a lot, but I'm in touch with like 3 pretty promising Web3 contenders for like the streaming and stuff, and I think that actually is a really strong use case for Web3 for there to be like a better distribution of the earnings potential, like for streamers, because Twitch and even the other giants are like oftentimes very exploitive, right? Like they're not very like wag me, right? So
YouTube takes like 35%, right, Scariox? I think, if like for super chat and things like that. It's like
45, 55 for everything, I think.
I was going to say, I think most of them are even 35. I mean, I think most of them are close to half of basically everything that you make. And like, that's great when you have the market cornered, but now you're going to start to see some like Web3 contenders coming into play. I think that will be much more wag me, as it were. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But
the number was 30%. 100%. And I'm keen. Like you can see already, and this isn't Web3, but you can already see creators start moving over to Kick and Rumble, right? Like when those names first came out, it's like, oh, whatever. Like, they're just the little guys playing over there. But now you're starting to see what Kai, I don't know how to pronounce his whole thing, but like Kai, which was like the number 1 streamer on Twitch, has moved over there. And there's a bunch of other creators that have moved over there. So it's gonna be fascinating to see. The next question, JP, the one that I wanted to ask you about earning. This is a conversation that I feel we're always having in Web3, and I personally think I have the answer, but I'll throw it to you. And I don't know why this is a question that always needs to be asked, but do you think Web2 gamers care about earning? And the reason I ask that is, and I'll kind of preface this already and kind of lead this a little bit, but some of the biggest releases of this year have been Star Wars Jedi Survivor. That was massive. I think Hogwarts Legacy came out end of last year. That was massive. We just had Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Coming up, we have Diablo, Final Fantasy. These are all Spider-Man 2. These are all massive, massive games that gamers are really, like, they're the most anticipated games of this year. And none of them have earnings. So how big of a factor do you think earnings actually play for gamers on a global scale, on the mass scale?
So it is going to depend on the demographic, obviously. But I think that true. So the way that I would word it is that true gamers will not sacrifice the quality of the game in exchange for earnings. I think that's like the easiest way to look at it, is that if they can have both and it works, then they'll look at it. But a true Web2 gamer is not going to play a crappy pixel whatever game just because they can earn money, because a lot of these people, they're happy spending their money just to play a better game, right? They don't care. Like, they will go and buy the next, the new Spider-Man. They'll pre-order Hogwarts, like, just to play it. They don't care because they just want the experience, right? Now, with that said, I think there are gamers that, now, if we had to talk like different tiers of people, I think there are gamers that care more about ownership than possibly earnings. So like, if there's a middle ground, I think there are gamers that are attracted to the idea of at least being able to have ownership of what they buy within games. But in terms of like, I think true gamers that we're trying to onboard from Web 2, the pitch can't be come make more money, like you're going to have a positive ROI. Like, that should not even be the pitch, right? And you're going to have, and this is what I really love about Illuvium, is that you're going to have people that are playing the meta game, and you can attract those people that want to play the economic game. You can attract the people like me that, and I'm kind of from both camps, but you can attract the people like me that have been trading for over a decade that want to come in and play the econ game, and sell them a bunch of Illuvium Land, right? And let them like run that in-game economy, and that's their game. That's how they have fun. But you need to, for the majority of Web 2 gamers that are coming in, there should be a very smooth transition to having fun without sacrificing for earnings. It's kind of my opinion.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. And the one thing I'll point out is that the Reddit event, I thought that was a really interesting point of contact for NFTs and Web 2, whereas Reddit handed out a bunch of free NFTs to Reddit users without them even realizing. I thought this was really interesting because all of a sudden they became Web3 maxis. You know what I mean? Like, they got super into it because all of a sudden they just got given something worth thousands of dollars. And they were like, oh shit, why have I been doing stuff without this? Now, I don't think gamers are going to come into a game just to earn money or anything like that. I think ownership is important for some as well. But I do think that a lot of them haven't experienced what Web3 is like, which Web3 includes earning. That's just how it is for the most part. I don't think they've experienced what it's like. And I think when many of the Web2 gamers do experience that, they are going to see the entire thing a little bit differently, and kind of something's going to be like let out of Pandora's box, right? I don't think they're going to like abandon good games for crappy games where you can earn in them. But I definitely think, especially with the ownership aspect, if it's a good game but you can own things, they're going to stick with it more. And I think CSGO is another example of that. CSGO has had ownership forever. It isn't very flashy. I mean, the gameplay is pretty good. I'm not a big fan of it, but the ownership there, I feel like, does drive a lot of those consumers, and retention hacks them. I really do think it does. They're like, oh, if I just open one more pack, I could open a pack in Overwatch, or I could keep playing in CSGO and open a pack in CSGO. CSGO, I have a chance of getting something big. Maybe I'll stick with CSGO, and I think that already speaks volumes. CSGO is a very, very old game, and they haven't really changed anything for 10 plus years, and they still have one of the largest consumer bases out of any game ever. So I think that does speak volumes to this sort of topic.
Yeah, I don't know. I think with the whole earning thing, I don't know. I disagree that Web3 has to include, like, I don't think we should market it that way.
No.
This is what we talked about before as well. And I think this is actually, we've seen it recently with some controversy with Gala as well. And some of their content creators about talking about ROI and tokens over the actual game itself. And there's been some conversation about that. But regardless, I think going back to what we said before about having people put more in than take out, I think that's in the marketing. If you're saying play to earn, you're saying play to take money out. And it's in like the subconscious of the consumer's mind that it's, yo, this is an extractive like thing to do. And all of those games that I mentioned, the reason that they're the most streamed, the most like played, all of those games, like I think Hogwarts set the new what's crazy about it was there was so much controversy with Hogwarts as well, with J.K. Rowling and everything like that. It was meant to be a boycott. It was meant to be a boycott. And it set the most viewed game on Twitch ever. So I don't know what they were boycotting, but it clearly didn't do anything, right? And the common factor that I saw in all those names that I mentioned was IP. Like all of those games had reputable and respectable IP. Like you're looking at Zelda, Hogwarts, Star Wars, Final Fantasy, Diablo, all of these games. So when I look at what the demand is for these games, it's not even quality of game. Like really, like I mean, Zelda doesn't look like Diablo doesn't look like Hogwarts, right? They look differently. And what you guys were saying about people not wanting to play Pixel, I know people that still play RuneScape. I think it's absurd.
Yeah.
But shit, like clearly people don't care as much as they say they do. So I don't actually think it's the visual thing that's the most important. I think it's IP and that connection, that emotional connection to these brands, and fun. Like that's really what it is. And I get that. Yeah, there is. Again, I don't know. Does Web3 come with earning? Do we say that like trading card games come with earning because you can sell them back? It's just a weird thing for me to think about.
I guess you have different type of people that participate. I think that's relatively healthy in its own right. It's quite interesting.
And that taps into the ownership idea, right? You own the card, you can sell the card. So, and that's kind of like the way that a lot of people grew up with, because like people in younger generations now are going to grow up in a world where all of their games are digital, right? Like that is like pretty much the direction everything's moving. Like, yeah, you can still go to the shelf and like get a game from Walmart or whatever, but it's becoming less and less common. Like when I grew up, everything, like I had to stand in line to get my Call of Duty disc from Walmart at 3 a.m. like to play the game. Now we're in a world where, you know, everything is on these launchers. You can go to Epic and download it and whatever. So some more traditional gamers are going to be familiar with the concept of I buy a disc, I can resell that disc and get some money back out of it. Think of the NFT like your disc, right? Like you buy this NFT to get access, you can resell it later. Yes, it's all digital, but you can recoup some you know money whenever you want to go and move on to another game. So that kind of is something familiar that we can kind of anchor, you know, some of our marketing material to. That's why I personally like leaning more into the ownership side than like the earning side, and just kind of setting the precedent that, like you said, play to earn. If you set this precedent of people like, oh, come in here, you'll get an ROI on your time. Like we just don't want to set that standard for anyone, because the more people try to just extract value from the ecosystem, the worse it is. And
I agree with you, JP. And I think that's the thing, right? When we talk about Web3 and everything like that, I would much rather the conversation be about ownership than earning. Because it's the same, like legitimately like what you said, when you buy a Nintendo 64, when you buy a CD, when you buy a Pokemon card, you know inherently the chances of that value going up and earning from it is pretty limited. Like the quality is going to, like, it's just when you own things, most of the time you're going to have that. If you open 1,000 Pokemon cards, you might find a couple that net you positive, but the majority of it is going to be less than. But at least you get some percentage of it back, and I think that's the conversation that we need to be having, instead of kind of not manipulating, but like kind of promising the world and being like, "Oh, guys, we're going to become rich." For like, yo, chill. Like it's not like that. It's just what we're doing in a digital format, and it's just a benefit to what we're having. I think that's a more honest and more convincing conversation to be having, right?
And I think just real quick, and then we'll move on. Sorry, because I'll talk about this for literally hours. But
absolutely.
But you know, and some people have this like this strange mindset where like when they come and they talk to me about arcade, they're like, so you're gonna have APRs and all this crap like that rival like DeFi Summer, right? And I'm like, okay, no, like you need to understand like the direction we're headed as an industry, and this is another reason why we're branching out into more things, not because we don't believe in the earnings potential of Web3, but because we know that in order for Web3, we know now, especially after 2 years of doing this full time, that in order for this industry to really be sustainable, these returns are going to be low. People aren't going to be getting 500% APR on their time in GameFi, right? You might get like 7% here and like 11% there. And it's going to be like competitive to other macroeconomic things you can be doing because it's its own like living economy. But it's not going to be like, you're not going to get DeFi Summer vibes from mission pools, really. Like that's just not the expectation people should have going into them. You're getting like new exposure to something. But anyway, that just kind of roots back to our reasoning for why we're branching into like additional things that we can do to create value and exciting new products and stuff.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Before we move on, I want to really quickly show this screenshot that Oscar Matt just sent me from someone on Twitter. I don't know who this is, Gaspo WD. and they were asking if people think ROI is pointless. Now, although this seems like a really interesting result, it does feel pretty split 50-50, but at the same time, there's such an echo chamber in crypto and blockchain and Web3 and stuff like that. So I take a lot of these sorts of polls a little bit with a grain of salt. I think it's quite interesting. I still didn't think it would be that high, to be honest. But this is a crypto influencer of some kind putting up a poll. So ROI is going to be important to a lot of people. But it is worth noting that people in Web3 still find an ROI important. But I feel like it is our duty, especially on the marketing sub-council, to change their mind when they come to Illuvium and be like, don't come to Illuvium for an ROI. Do what you want, but come to Illuvium if you want to play the game. And that's why you should be here. And we should be kind of like directing that conversation.
Or if you come to yeah, go ahead.
All right, go, JP, go.
No, I was just gonna say so I like what you just said. I know him. I know the creator you're talking about, and I actually voted on that poll as well. But what was I going with this? Oh yeah, so I mean, if you're gonna come to Illuvium for that exposure, then come to the right place for it, right? So like we can have the meta game Illuvium Zero. Like if we want to take a title and like make it more appealing to the people that want to play the economy, that's cool. Like we can offer that as an option, but let's like direct them to the right place. If they want to play the economy, then let's build Illuvium Zero to like be that solution for that game that those people want to play. But yeah, always vote C results.
And Scott, there's actually something that I disagree with you on, where you say it's our role as the marketing sub-council / team to change their minds. I don't think it's
I didn't mean it so literally.
No, but I think it's a good thing to like understand subconsciously. It's not our role it's not our job to change their minds, because you're fighting against someone that's fighting against you. What you want to be doing is going out to grab the people that are already kind of like receptive to your values already, instead of going and wasting your time, energy, capital fighting against someone that's like against what you think anyway. So regardless,
and it is it is an echo chamber, like you were saying. Like when you're looking at the results of that poll, you're talking about 0.000001% of our demographic that we need to be going after personally. So that at least that's what I think. So
so we're so early, man. We're still like, again, I did a report with Lauren a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And I think the numbers that we looked at in the space, like there are 3 billion gamers, that number always gets thrown around. But there are actually only 1 million daily active unique wallets in the Web3 gaming space. 1 million. And that's like, how many of them are bots? We don't know. But
I was going to say, I'm surprised it's even that high.
And how many of them are duplicates, right?
Yeah, well, it's unique active wallets. But again, it could be someone with multiple wallets. It's a very, very small number in the grand scheme of everything. We're so early, and again, that's across all chains, not just the one. But all right, moving on.
I've got a really fun question I've been excited to say. So we all love Illuvium. Everyone knows that. No one in the chat kill me. But this is a question I would love to ask you, JP. And honestly, I'll leave it up to you, and then I'll say something more. But you have more exposure in Web3 than anyone else I know, except Annie. Annie's probably maybe on the same level. I don't know. Annie's got a lot of exposure.
Annie will give me a run for my money. No, yeah.
What other games are underrated? Because I've found quite a few underrated games lately, and I've been like, whoa, why? I mean, I love Illuvium, and I like keeping my head in the sand a little bit, really focusing on Illuvium, but it's really great to see the wider world sometimes too. What is a really underrated game you think people should be aware of outside of Illuvium and Star Atlas?
Yeah, you're gonna take Star Atlas from me too. No, I wouldn't say that, just because I got to give you guys like something that people haven't heard of. Let me think for a second. I would say there's two. I'm gonna narrow it down to two. So, and you guys may have heard of one or both, but first one is Gunzilla. They're a game studio building on a subnet in the Avalanche ecosystem. They are a like third-person shooter type battle royale game. The team is stacked. We've been a supporter of theirs for a while. Team is absolutely beyond stacked. Amazing guys. They're building something super cool. Look into the gameplay trailer for it. Gunzilla is the studio. I think the first title is called
Off the grid.
Off the Grid.
I'm
So
looking at it right now.
look at the trailer for Off the Grid. It's like kind of this cyberpunk vibe for like a battle royale third person shooter. It's just the structure that they have is really awesome. So that would be one I'd look into. The second one is called Walker World. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but it was called Crypto Walkers, but I think it's walkerworld.io is the website. And Walker World, so they're a client of Arcade. Like we're advisors for them, but I'm not just saying it because we're connected to them. Like they are genuinely building one of the most beautiful Unreal Engine 5 open world environments that I've seen. Like no offense to Illuvium maxis, but like I'd say it's getting close to like being on par in my mind, because if you look at like the recent trailer that they put out, that is in-game footage. Like that is not cinematic. Like I legitimately thought it was cinematic the first time I saw it, but they just have like unreal environmental artists. And so I would say Walker World, definitely keep an eye on it. They have like NFT collections. They have new stuff dropping. It's like an open world MMO style. But those would be two that I'd keep an eye on, guys. Definitely super cool. And I just really love to see like quality games like this building. So like obviously I'm a huge Illuvium fan. It's just so nice to see like stuff like Off the Grid and Walker World like putting in like the same or similar level of quality just to like push up the entire industry. It's just good for everyone.
No, that's
For
it.
sure.
That's it. Yeah, I had a look at it. We'll definitely do a bit more research. But all right, yo, we're almost hitting that hour mark, so I think we can wrap this up with one final question about you, JP, and just some of your advice. But also, before we do that, Ricky, fun fact, you can't wait to chat with Lauren. I have been talking to Lauren, and he will be making an appearance on Augment at some point. Once there's a little thing that kind of pops off, I'm definitely going to bring him up. He definitely wants to be here and chat with you guys. He is a wealth of knowledge and great dude. But anyway, regardless,
I keep hearing amazing things about him. I haven't met him
Yes.
yet, but I keep hearing like everyone's just talking about how great he is. Like I got to meet this.
Yeah,
Gotta
he's
meet this guy.
he's the director of partnerships. So all the partnerships and stuff, all the conversation that we're having, he's the one leading that, and I'm there helping him out with that. But he's the guy on top
Amazing.
of everything. And again, he prefers a low profile, but I've kind of convinced him that you don't need to go public with everything. Just kind of make yourself known to the Illuvium community, especially once a few of these announcements have come out. So, and he's down for it. Yeah, and fun fact, me and him actually started on the exact same day as well. So me and him have been pretty tight because of that.
Awesome. Love
But
it.
yeah, all right.
Love
So
it.
JP, real quick before we wrap this up. So Arcade's got a bit of a following, and you've recently been elected into. Both of you guys have been elected onto the sub council for marketing. So congrats there. But clearly you understand how to build a brand and a following. If you could share one bit of advice for others trying to do the same thing, whether it's for a project, just anything that or themselves even, what would that advice be?
So I think the number one thing that I've done in the past couple years that's been helpful is not being afraid to do public speaking things, right? So like this is similar, like this is a good example, but like reach out to people that are doing podcasts, that are doing like shows, even if it's just like a Twitter space. If you don't want to be on camera, like set yourself up to network in the public eye, and you will just naturally start to get people, because almost every single Twitter space that I've done in front of like a decent sized audience, like I almost always have someone reach out to me afterwards and be like, hey, like great chat, I'd like you to look at my project, or like come look at this or that or whatever. And that has been a really important kind of deal flow for the Arcade as a company, because I've met like a ton of games through doing that. So I would say just like don't be afraid to be active in your networking, like go out and do these types of things. There's a lot of people we were really recently just talking about this in the Illuvium Discord about like the pros and cons of doxing. I personally don't really see any reason not to be doxxed. Like it actually made me start to think, like when everyone was like, I want to be anonymous, I was like, am I missing something? Like, did I just like come in here and like I'm gonna get mugged or something? But like I personally don't I'm like, I would say if you're gonna try to take Web3 seriously, like don't be afraid to dox yourself. Like, I mean, what are you hiding from? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me, but I like, don't be afraid to like get on camera and just like meet people, talk, and network. That would be like kind of the best piece of advice, I think.
I think, yeah, the biggest thing I think with the doxing is if you're working for like a top company, a global company in a higher position, you can't, like you just gotta be careful.
I mean, I get that. I mean, I guess
So,
I don't, that has never been a concern of mine because I've been self-employed for over a decade. So like, I get it. Like if you worked for like IBM or something and you didn't want, to have that concern, then
exactly. Yo, Skarks, I'm actually curious. I like this question, so I want to throw it to you as well because I feel like all three of us have kind of done all right to kind of build a bit of a, not a following, but a reputation at least in the community. And again, so if you had to give some advice, what's worked for you, and what would you kind of advise to other people?
Yeah, JP already took the collaboration one. Honestly, my collaboration game is kind of weak. Like I'm all right. I'm good in DMs and things, but when it goes to like going on podcasts and things, I'm a little bit slow when it comes to it. But the biggest thing is probably provide value. Now, a large amount of my following, especially early on, was I provided videos that gave people kind of something they were interested in, but it gave them value that they couldn't just acquire themselves. I think that's a lot like what Arcade and even Illuvium is doing. No one can just go out and build a game. So you're giving someone something, they're like, okay, cool, I want to follow you, I want to get involved. I tried to do that myself and provide things that people couldn't do themselves, but they wanted to see and things like that. So I provided that value to the community, but outside of that, I also had a lot of people sending me DMs and things like that and just responding to every DM, being honest, and I always answer fully. I really don't like that thing where you answer with like half a message. I give very detailed responses. You can ask people. I very much go with very full responses where, no, you're pretty good, Tish. I wouldn't say that.
Delayed for sure.
I go with very, very full responses where I make sure that I'm giving all the answers I possibly can and answering the question fully and just providing as much value as I can to someone who is interested in what I have to say. And yeah, just being honest and providing as much information and value as I can is probably been the big thing for me. I think when you're building a project in a space, it tends to come with it as well. Like if you're building something that hasn't been built yet, people might be really interested in what you're building, so there's that. But from a creator point of view, then I think it works very much the same.
Yeah. It worked for you, Scoriox. I was around, like I found you when you were just little baby Scoriox. You had like 100 subs or something. Like you were just like just starting. Like I found you like super early, and I was like, this kid's going places. I was like, he's doing cool videos. So it works. Like you provided value, right? Like you found you. I remember thinking, I don't want to go off on tangent here, but I remember thinking like he's providing analysis and like detailed stuff that I can't get from other creators. Like I think that's the kind of thing. Like I went to Scoriox's channel early on because he was providing spreadsheets and like deep thought analysis on things that like I wasn't able to get from other creators that were just going through leaks. Right? No shame on the other creators that are just going through leaks, but try to stand out and provide.
Well, it's really interesting you say that because that's why I started doing it. I went on to YouTube and I was looking up a bunch of stuff I wanted to know about Illuvium. I'm like, damn, no one's got this. Like, I'm looking for this information. I'm like, no one's got this information yet. And I wasn't like, I'm going to cut into the market or whatever and try and find a gap in the market. I was more like,
I'm going to do this anyway.
Might as well share it with people. Well, now I've got to do it myself. I might as well share it with other people so they can find it now, because I couldn't. And I would really want them to. So, yeah, that was really where it came from. So what about you, TSG? What would you have to say?
It's funny. I'll share this real quick and then I'll give my advice. And also, yes, Ricky, Control-C, Control-V, and me giving really short answers that in the middle of a campaign, writing individual personalized messages is very, very time consuming. So yes, a lot of Control-C, Control-V just to make things happen. And yeah, short answers. But it's funny, when I came into this, again, I've been doing sales for like over a decade of my life. So I understand consumer behavior and things like that already. So when I started making content, it was funny because I started making content. I knew I was going to do all right regardless. But then governance came out. And again, same thing like you. But I actually did see there was a way to cut the market. I was like, this is beneficial for everyone involved. One, I get to provide value to the community because they get to actually see, and like what you said, JP, it's more relatable when people see and hear from you rather than read whatever you type. So having those interviews, it got them the community a chance to better know their nominees. The nominees got a better chance to represent themselves, and I got a chance to network with all the people that would potentially be in the council, which was like an all around win situation. But the advice that I would give to people is two things. One, show love without expectation. Legitimately, it's very simple. Like this is not there's no secret to it. I think that's how me and you got connected, Scarhaps. I think it was legitimately just like, oh man, yo, nice video. Just reach out to people and be like, hey, guys, like, don't feel like someone's too big to reach out to, or you're too big for someone else. Legitimately just reach out to people and say, I like what you're doing, without any expectation of collaboration or anything at all. Like, just say good job if that's how you truly feel. That's it. I love your points on this. Dude, I love your hair in this. I don't care what it is. Like, legitimately, just show some love. And then the second thing, to build genuine brand, and I think we see Nike do this really well with Just Do It and things like that. Find out what you stand for. Like, do some reflection, retrospection. That's probably the right word. But whatever. Find the thing that you stand for and really makes you unique, right? Like, Scarux is that analytics guy. Like, do that. And find out what that thing is. So for me, it's like, yo, because people are going to relate to that inherently. If they've had that quality in you, there's a reason that Donald Trump is popular. Make America great again. A lot of people believe that shit with all their heart, right? There's Bernie Sanders with like, yo, tax the rich. There are people that believe that shit with their heart. Find out what that thing is for you and then kind of go into it, because people are going to relate to that if they fuck with that. So find out what you want to represent and kind of push forward with yourself. So find out what your brand is. Even as an individual, there's something that makes you unique. You might love cats. Look at Llama, the Lynx guy, right? He has a cat. Like, find out what that thing that makes you unique and drives you in your life, and people are going to relate to it. But those two things, find out who the fuck you are and why people should even listen to you. And then second, or first, show love. And then second, that thing.
I think that brings up a really interesting point. Is I follow a lot of this, how to build a YouTube channel, all that sort of stuff. But I even follow some Twitters that are similar and things like that. And some of them often ask a bunch of like people, they're like, okay, if you're a millionaire, tell me what your one piece of advice would be. And I think it's a really fun question. Maybe we can bring it to future augments. But when they ask millionaires or billionaires or whatever, the really consistent response is actually just be nice to everyone. And honestly, I've like just give without the expectation of getting something in return. It always comes back. But I will tell you, like in my, like I felt this the past 2 or 3 years even. I will tell you, if you expect something in return, even if you think you're not expecting something in return, it's not going to work. It never, ever does. If you genuinely give something without expectation of return, it works every damn time. It's you won't believe how far you can get. And it's really how I've grown as a person in this past 2 or 3 years, just simply following some of those sorts of things. And it's been insane. It's been amazing.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, that's a nice way to wrap up with advice, guys. I think. And also, so Ricky has built his brand as the luckiest person. Jimbo's built his brand as the face of Illuvium. I mean, yo, there are ways to do it. But yo, JP, any kind of final words before we wrap this up, man? It was a pleasure having you on. But yeah, last words, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, I would just say, if you're watching this and we're not connected on like Twitter or Discord or whatever, shoot me a message. Like, let's get connected, because I'd love to hear your feedback on like what we're building and stuff like that. We also have so our mission pool platform is in a private alpha state at the moment, but we're going to be giving away some access basically to the private alpha. So we'll I'm going to loop in Illuvium somehow to that, and just like make it a way like that you guys can get access early on. But we'll figure that out when it comes to it. But yeah, just keep an eye on what we're building. Give me feedback on it, and appreciate everyone for coming out.
Cool. All right, sick. And I'm excited, man. Again, we didn't get to touch on a lot of the marketing questions, but again, we'll have you back on and dive super deep into marketing, as both you guys are on the marketing sub-council, and it's a topic that I could speak. I would love to speak a lot on, but yeah.
Maybe we could get on the entire sub-council at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm down for
have
that.
a big marketing roundtable on one of our channels or something like that, or even on the Illuvium official channel. That'd be an interesting series of videos. Just the sub councils getting on. That could be interesting. But I'm sure the community sub council will organize whatever they think works best.
Yeah. Nah, solid. We'll talk about it. But yeah, all right, guys. Appreciate everyone watching. By the way, JP's Twitter will be in the description down below.
And the link to Arcade2Earn.
And that's the one. All right, guys. Peace out. We will catch you